الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Center at New York University podcast, coming to you straight from the heart of New York City. We're building an amazing Muslim community here at ICNYU where everyone is welcomed and respected no matter where you're from or where you're at. This is the place to be. So open your ears and your heart and come along with us on another life-changing journey. Bismillah.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we didn't meet last week. I'm sorry about that. I was out of the country. But where we left off 2 weeks ago, we were having a conversation on wudu. Does anybody remember the verse from the Quran, which one it was that we looked at, that talked about wudu?
Verse 5? Was it Surah Ma'idah, verse 5?
Yeah, close. Really good.
6?
Verse 6, yeah. It was verse 6. If people want to pull that up, if you have it on your phone or if you have like a copy, and the translation is fine. We'll work with the translation. Yeah, can you read it out loud, man?
You who believe, when you're about to pray, wash your faces and your hands and your arms up to your elbows, wipe your heads, wash your feet up to your ankles, and if required, wash your whole body. Let me keep going.
That's fine. So this was the verse that became the base of the performance of wudu. And what we were hoping to do today is just go through an actual process, like water in front of me, we have a bucket. I'm like super jet lagged, just so you know. And I'm gonna ask somebody to volunteer. I'm not gonna like wash you. You will like wudu yourself, essentially. But just so we could go through it step by step and we can understand the actual process that's there. What you want to understand about this as a practice is that it's its own ritual in Islam, right? So a couple of weeks ago we introduced two terms. We talked about ibadah, which is worship, right? And that there's two broader categories that we study when you're studying like legal rulings in Islam. You study what are called ibadat, the worship, your prayer and fasting and charity, etc. And then you have mu'amalat, which are like kind of your interactions with the people around you, so to speak. In the early part of Islam, before anything was mandated, we have in our tradition narration that the angel Gabriel, peace be upon him, comes to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, while he is in Mecca, and he teaches him how to pray, like our ritual prayer. And probably in like a week or two we'll start talking about the ritual prayer. But in this instance, before the angel Gabriel shows the Prophet how to pray, he teaches him how to make wudu first. Right? So the very first ritual practice that the Prophet Muhammad is taught and that he performs is arguably the act of wudu. At that time, wudu and prayer are not mandated in the ways that we see them mandated in Medina. So if you remember, we talked some weeks ago that the actual community is established in Medina that allows now for certain things to happen that couldn't happen in Mecca, where they didn't have a base, they were persecuted. And so in Mecca, when the Prophet is taught how to pray, both for himself but for others at that time, because there's verses in the Quran that talk about prayer that were revealed in Mecca. These are like recommended prayers. They're like extra prayers. They're not obligatory prayers, right? So you want to start to piece together the words that we've been talking about. right? Obligation, the word fard, right? Something that is recommended, mustahab, an established prophetic practice, sunnah mu'akkada, something that is disliked, makruh, something that is impermissible, strictly prohibited religiously, haram. So the prayers that the people were praying in Mecca in the very beginning, they weren't obligatory prayers. These were just extra prayers that they were doing. But the angel Gabriel came and taught the Prophet Muhammad how to perform the prayer. And before that, he showed him how to make wudu, how to wash up for the prayer. Because a prerequisite for the validity of the prayer is that you have a state of ritual purity, which is wudu. So if I didn't have wudu, I just used the restroom, I was asleep for the night and I woke up and I said, I'm just going to pray without making wudu. Somebody could say to me, well, that doesn't count. It's not valid. Its validity necessitates the prerequisite state of wudu. And these aren't things to kind of be mechanical about alone, but the mechanics are important to it. And there was one anecdote that we discussed that came from the prophetic tradition that involved the two grandsons of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all, Hassan and Hussein, where they see an older companion who is making mistakes in wudu. And so they seek to teach him, but with some etiquette. This is their elder. So one says to the other, let's pretend like we're having a competition, ask him to judge who makes wudu the best. And in the course of that, one of them makes the mistake. They start to go back and forth on it. And at the end, the elder companion, he is grateful to them that they have taught him something without necessarily taking away some of his dignity.